Every Sunday, millions of people go to church. Here's something most never realize. The Greek word for church, ekklesia, had nothing to do with religion. It meant a political assembly, a town hall meeting. When early Christians chose this word for their gatherings, they weren't thinking worship service, they were thinking citizen assembly. To understand why, we travel back to the Greek polis. The polis, pronounced poh-lis, was the Greek city-state, but calling it a city misses the point. A polis was a complete political territory, the urban center surrounding farmland and dependent villages all governed as one unit. Take Athens. When we say Athens, we mean the entire region of Attica, not just the city streets. Villages miles away answered to Athenian law, paid Athenian taxes, and sent their sons to Athenian assemblies. Here's the surprising part. Most polis were tiny. Athens was exceptional with perhaps 30,000 citizens. A typical polis had just 1,000 to 5,000. Compare that to Rome's million inhabitants. The Greek city-state was intimate face-to-face politics. The polis wasn't just a place, it was a system for manufacturing citizens, the key institution, the gymnasium. When we think gym means exercise. The Greeks meant something far more ambitious. The word comes from gymnos, naked, because Greeks exercised nude. But the gymnasium was more than a sports facility. It was a speech school where young men learned rhetoric, a social club where citizens networked, a game room. Archaeologists still find game boards carved into ancient flagstones. Physical training, intellectual formation, and social bonding happened in the same complex. The gymnasium embodied paideia, pronounced paideia, the Greek concept of complete formation, not just education, the total shaping of a young man into a citizen. The formal pathway from boy to citizen was called the ephebeia, pronounced ephebeia. Young men between ages 16 and 22 entered this program together. They trained as warriors, learning to fight in formation. They marched in religious parades representing their city. They competed in athletics, building the physical prowess Greeks prized. Most importantly, they formed bonds with the men who would fight beside them in battle. Boyhood meant learning to read, write, and memorize Homer. The ephebeia meant becoming a soldier citizen. Only by completing this process did young men earn full citizenship rights, the right to vote, own property, and participate in the assembly. The polis created citizens through education, but what did those citizens actually do? Greek political life centered on three bodies. First, the demos, the people. This meant all adult male citizens eligible to participate. Foreigners, slaves, and women were excluded. Second, the boule, pronounced boule, a council of roughly 50 older men. They set the agenda, deciding which matters came before the full assembly. Third, the ekklesia, the assembly itself. Here, citizens gathered to debate and vote on everything from war to taxation to religious festivals. The system worked simply. The boule proposed, the ekklesia decided. Older men with experience filtered the issues. The full citizen body made final choices. This wasn't representative democracy. Citizens didn't elect others to vote for them. They showed up and voted themselves. Now, here's where it gets fascinating for understanding early Christianity. Ekklesia literally means the calling out. Citizens called out from their homes and fields to assemble. This is the word New Testament writers chose for Christian communities. They didn't borrow temple vocabulary. They didn't use words for religious gatherings or mystery cults. They chose the term for a political assembly. The significance is profound. Early Christians saw themselves as a new kind of citizen body, called out, assembled, making decisions together. When Paul wrote letters to the ecclesia in Corinth or Thessalonica, his readers heard political overtones we miss entirely. The ecclesia wasn't the only civic space shaping daily life. The theater hosted entertainment and political assemblies. The same venue served both purposes. Public baths operated as business centers. Citizens moved through 3 rooms, cold, warm, hot, while negotiating deals, exchanging gossip, and building networks. Bathing was social, not private. The hippodrome or circus in Roman terminology drew crowds for chariot races and spectacles. These weren't luxuries. They were the infrastructure of civic life, the places where citizens encountered each other as citizens. Every Greek city had these same institutions. Walk into any polis from Sicily to Syria and you'd recognize the layout. This standardization wasn't accidental. When Alexander the Great conquered the Persian Empire, his successors transplanted the Greek urban model everywhere they ruled. They founded cities across Turkey, Syria, Israel, Jordan, and Egypt, each built on the same template: gymnasium, theater, agora, baths. The same institutions, the same architecture, the same Greek language binding them together. That shared language was koine, pronounced koinai, meaning common. Koine Greek became the lingua franca of the Eastern Mediterranean. A merchant from Alexandria could conduct business in Antioch. A philosopher from Athens could lecture in Ephesus. This is why ancient ruins across the region look remarkably similar. Early Christianity emerged within this Greek urban framework. The Apostle Paul traveled roads connecting Greek-style cities. He preached in synagogues located in Greek-speaking communities. He wrote letters in Koine Greek to ekklesiae, assemblies, meeting in homes but organized like civic bodies. Christians didn't invent new institutional forms from scratch. They adapted what existed. House churches functioned as miniature assemblies. Elders resembled the boule, providing guidance. The gathered community made decisions together, ekklesia style. The vocabulary stuck. We still call Christian gatherings churches, a word that carries 2,500 years of Greek political DNA. The Polis shaped Christianity's institutional imagination from the beginning. Consider what this means for reading the New Testament. When Paul addresses the ecclesia of God in Corinth, his audience heard civic assembly, not Sunday service. When he discusses how the community should make decisions, he's drawing on Greek political practice. The early church's debates about leadership, membership, and authority played out using categories borrowed from polis governance. Who belongs to the assembly? Who sets the agenda? How do we decide together? These weren't abstract theological questions. They were practical governance questions. The same questions every Greek city had answered for centuries. Christianity inherited a political vocabulary and adapted it for a new kind of community. The Greek polis was a complete civic ecosystem, city, farmland, and villages governed as one. It manufactured citizens through the gymnasium and ephebeia. It made decisions through the boule and ekklesia. It spread its model across the entire Eastern Mediterranean. When early Christians needed a word for their gatherings, they reached for ekklesia, not temple language, not mystery cult vocabulary, but a term for citizens assembled to deliberate and decide. Next time you hear the word church, remember, you're using Greek political vocabulary. Early Christians didn't invent institutions from scratch. They adapted the civic framework of the polis. Understanding this helps us read the New Testament with ancient eyes, seeing how Christianity grew within and transformed the Greek urban world.